Why was last year such a banner year for captives?
I think I can kick that off. When we certainly entered 2020, we were looking around wondering how bad business was going to be. And much to our surprise, we ended the year with one of our best years ever. Um, the pandemic has created some interesting dynamics, certainly in the captive business. When people set up these insurance companies, they set out with the things that they believe will happen and they want to cover that. But what winds up happening, or what has wound up happening, is that the captives have served a very useful purpose in becoming a nice bridge for many of our clients. Many of you have been potentially following what's happening with the property insurance coverages and lawsuits against commercial carriers relative to business interruption denials of claims. So essentially, these carriers, as a function of all the lockdowns and all the states not allowing businesses to open, the businesses feel like there's been a loss of income due to this business interruption due to this pandemic. And ultimately, what the carriers have primarily written in their policies is that there's no property damage, and that's the trigger for these coverages. So most folks are not able to file a claim against the commercial policies. And for our clients who have set up a captive, the captive is really designed to have coverages that you get to design that has very broad form. So a good portion of our client base offer business interruption coverage from their captives, and those types of losses that I just described essentially would be covered. And so without getting into too many specifics, we've had a number of companies where the claim and the reimbursement of losses from their captives has become a lifeline. And so I think what's happening with those folks and people, frankly, that have sort of been sitting on the fence with captives, they've now seen that there's utility to this in ways that they didn't anticipate. So whether it be a business interruption risk or a cyber loss or a supply chain interruption, there is now more acuity in people's feelings about how this thing might impact their business for the positive. So I'll pause there, see if Jared and Wes has anything to add.
Yeah, so I mean, just imagine, to give Max spot on and to give a real world example. I mean, just imagine you're a business owner that built a business renting out surfboards and boogie boards and lawn chairs and beach chairs in Hawaii. And then the pandemic happens. You've got, 200 employees and 30 million in revenue, whatever the case may be. And then now you're just shut down. And, absent the captive, you're filing a claim to your traditional insurance for business interruption, and they're declining you. This particular example, they actually had their captive, and it was the exact lifeline that Max talked about. So, a lot of similarly situated people that didn't have it, realizing that, like, oh, maybe I should have it, and then coming in and setting something like that up. The other reason we're seeing increased formations is certain insurances, property, which we touched on, auto, excess liability, all those traditional health insurance, which we'll get into, all those coverages in the traditional market are getting super expensive for a variety of reasons. But so anytime that happens, you get business owners and the stakeholders looking for captive solutions. So that's the other big contributing factor.
The only other thing I would add to it is we had with existing clients who had captives, they had people who didn't pay their bills. So if they wrote trade credit insurance, then they have the ability to submit those and get reimbursed from their captive to make themselves whole because people decided they weren't going to pay them.